What what should we talk about? I don't even know. What should we talk about? Anything here? I don't know. Who is?
It's your interview. I don't know. What do you want to do?
Is this a good way to start an interview, Drew?
No, this is wretched. This is how not to start an interview. This is, if you're going to do an interview, you've got to be prepared. You got to know what you want to accomplish. And I'm not certain, David, you know what you want to accomplish.
Here's I think I know what I want to accomplish. I want to accomplish how to do this better. How, if I were to start an interview, what do I need to prepare before this interview even begins?
Oh, you have to remember as a storyteller that the interview is the spine of your story. It's the heart and soul. What other body parts can I pick? It is the part of your story that's going to give it emotion and focus, and it's how your audience is going to engage in your story. And that's what you're looking for, is engagement. You're looking for an audience to go, that's like me. I have that pain point. I have that problem. This person maybe can help me out. So as a consequence, as a producer, as a reporter, as a journalist, you need to make certain that you're driving that interview in ways that make the person comfortable, but also so that you're controlling it, giving it boundaries. And there are a couple of ways I like to think about it. One is you need to not only think about yourself doing an interview as a journalist, but you need to kind of think of yourself as a shrink, because you're really reading body language, where they're excited, what they're interested in, what their point of view is. All of those sorts of things are really important so that you're going to be in a position to respond and get the answers you need, because you're really looking for, you're talking to somebody because they've got a point of view or they got a piece of information you need. And
Well, let me cut you off right there. The respond is key. And I think that's super important because we do go in with a list of prepared questions, but don't let that be a military list, because the response is critical. And talk about like reading the person and responding as a result.
I have a technique when I'm going to do an interview, and I know it's going to be a little more complicated, not something that's necessarily at an event, but where I'm going to go talk to a business executive or somebody in my company or organization where it's like a CEO, and I need to prepare a little bit. So what I do is I work really hard on my questions, and I really craft them. I get them in an order I want. I really work on them, and just before the camera rolls, I look at those interviews and really quickly, and then I sit on them, because I don't want the person I'm interviewing looking at the top of my head. Because as they talk, if I'm doing this, they don't know who they're going to talk to. They're not talking to me. I need to make certain, if I'm running that interview, that I'm controlling that interview and I'm listening. And I'm not only listening with my ears, I'm listening with my eyes. What are they responding to? If I know my questions, I can do a pivot. I can respond to what they're interested in. I know that, okay, maybe question 2 was this, but they just touched on something that's in question 4, and I'm going to follow that up. And if I'm worried about my next question, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss an opportunity to really engage this person and give them a chance to go. So to prepare for an interview, that means I'm really looking at it in 3 sections. The first section is the research phase, where I look at who I might want to interview, and I almost cast it like a movie. Do they know their stuff? Are they passionate about what they care about? Is it someone who has a good story to tell? Do they represent the point of view I have in terms of presenting it? I'm really looking to do research to make certain I know the topic well. The second phase is literally the setup, what takes place. I make certain I don't do my interview before the camera rolls. When I first started doing interviews for documentaries and stuff, I was always so nervous and so anxious. I'd want to make small talk, and I'd talk about what was at the top of my mind. And invariably, it was the interview, and I'd run that interview, and then camera would go on, and they go, well, yeah, we just talked about this. And audience members love ideation, that point of watching someone form ideas, of making connections. And if that connection happened 20 minutes before you rolled the camera, it's not going to be there. So I try to control it. And then the third part for me is how I listen and how I manage that interview. So it's really 3 pieces for me.
Are there any universal questions or universal ways of relating with someone that solicit great answers? Because I actually wrote an article about questions that always solicit great answers. Do you have any sort of tricks of the trade?
I don't know if I have tricks or tricks of the trade, but I always make certain that my questions are not yes or no questions. I always make certain my questions are observational. How did you feel about this? If you had this, or reflective, if you had to do this over again, how would you change it? So that the folks are not only reciting data or giving facts, they're really giving their interpretation. So rather than having set questions or set answers, which are fantastic, particularly in managing someone who's a little bit recalcitrant or trying to draw somebody out. Really what I'm looking to do is try to get them to be a little expansive. And that means asking them how something affected them. Describe how it, you're really asking them to describe something or to convey something, to express something. That also means sometimes, sidebar, everybody comes to an interview with some sort of agenda. Even if they appear to be reluctant, they're agreeing to be interviewed because they have a reason that they want to put forward. They want to share something, they're excited about something, they're trying to sell something. Whatever it is, they agree to it because they have an agenda. And they get really frustrated if you fail to give them an opportunity to talk about that agenda. So one of my favorite last questions are, so if you were doing this interview, what question would you be sure to ask? And often they'll go, no, I think you've covered it. I think you're in good shape. But sometimes they'll go, well, I think it's important X, Y, and Z. And you've given them an opportunity to present the content that they wanted to put forward. If you're editing it, you may or may not use it, but at least they've had an opportunity to participate in the way they wanted to.
And I will close with this. I've heard many journalists say the same exact thing. You have to ask them, what did I miss? Anyways, great point. Thanks so much for your time, Drew.
Oh, my pleasure. I always love talking with you, and I always love the work you're doing, so thanks for giving me a chance.